Hello, thanks for tuning in. November 28th, Joe Zimhart here again, and we're going to be talking about something called GEOTRAN. It's come to my attention in the last few months, and it's not this GEOTRAN, which is spelled with a capital G, capital T, which is a construction engineering LLC, but we're going to be talking about GEOTRAN that's spelled with all caps, as you can see here, and this is off their website. So here's what they say. GEOTRAN is a numerical, digital, geometric language entered at specific points called spin points. Okay, so think chakras, think acupuncture points here, in or around the body. So let's think aura around the body, an energy field. It is a language of success. All right, so now you can have success in everything. GEOTRAN restores a person's ability to have choice. GEOTRAN is a tool that is simple, powerful, and easy to use for personal transformation. This is something that appeared in the past couple decades, and more popular maybe in the past 10, 15 years. People began practicing it, like this one character I have here on his website, he says, and started using it in 2011. It's kind of a technique picked up by life coaches, people that like to help other people with simple techniques, but it's based on some ideas which have been around for a long time, kind of psycho-spiritual or pseudoscientific ideas. For instance, one of them that I can trace this back to, even though it doesn't trace itself back to him, is Jose Silva and the Silva Method, or Silva mind control, that appeared around the 1950s. Jose Silva influenced Scientology, and a lot of GETRAN is like Scientology boiled down to very simplistic ideas without the same words. So they rely on two main things that I found problematical. One is something called a morphogenetic field, or morphogenic field, posited by Rupert Sheldrake, who was a scientist, and then he came up with this idea of this sort of animistic field of energy that connects all things, and he wrote about it in a book called The Presence of the Past, and then he began to do pseudoscience after that. In fact, Rupert Sheldrake was mentioned here quite often in this book that came out in 1988 called The Fringes of Reason. Now, this was put out by the Whole Earth Catalog. Now, the Whole Earth Catalog was responsible in the 80s for quite a bit of alternative ways of living, communal stuff, natural foods, alternative healing modalities, all that good stuff that wasn't mainstream, that wasn't part of the, quote, system run by Big Brother and the government and all that. But what the writers of the Whole Earth Catalog began to notice is a lot of crazy stuff was coming up in this hippie, new age kind of alternative way to live and heal and have spirituality. And so they came up with this guide, and it says, a field guide to New Age frontiers, unusual beliefs, and eccentric sciences, and it was edited by Ted Schultz and Stuart Brand. And they tried to create a corrective to all this nonsense and crazy stuff that was going on, because people were getting hurt. They weren't getting properly treated medically. They were taking all kinds of crazy substitutes and supplements for food. So, three instances here, especially regarding something called the 100th monkey phenomenon. They mention that Rupert Sheldrake and Lyle Watson were two people that were invoked in order to prove that this 100th monkey phenomenon, or that somehow a critical mass could be reached by a number of beings in any species. If a certain number began to do something and learned it, then all the others around the world just automatically learned it through what Watson and Sheldrake posited as this morphogenic field of energy, which was intelligent and somehow could boost everybody and save the planet. Well, Sheldrake's been ridiculed for his idea since 1988, and for some reason, the people of GETRAN didn't seem to care about that, but they picked him up as being supportive of their ideas. So GETRAN works through this field of energy, through its spin points and whatever that they can invoke. And they also can use something called applied kinesiology in order to connect with this field of energy and these geometric points and this geometric language that they teach you. So what is applied kinesiology? Well, in Wikipedia, I'm going to turn to this, is a pseudoscience in alternative medicine claimed to be able to diagnose illnesses or choose treatment by testing muscles for strength and weakness. According to their guidelines on allergy diagnostic testing, the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology stated that there is no evidence of diagnostic validity of applied kinesiology. So I've had a long history with applied kinesiology. I first heard about it back in the 80s when I was called in by a parent of a child who was in the 5th grade, and apparently the school had brought in this applied kinesiology instructor to teach students how to use this muscle testing technique, especially, let's give you a simple idea. You put your arm out like this, right or left, and you can use your leg, extended leg, when you're laying down also. And a person will ask you, for instance, if you're looking for a career, how do you feel about engineering? And they'll press down pretty hard. And if your arm gets weak and goes down, well, then you have a problem with your path of engineering. And, and also, they might ask you something about your potassium in your system. Your arm goes down, you might need more potassium. If it stays up and it's strong while they're pressing, then you're okay. Well, now I'm rushing through this, but that's basically how it works. And people can use it for everything from spiritual questions about God to vitamins to whatever. So its history, it comes from a guy named George J. Goodhart, a chiropractor, and that should warn you already that there's something odd going on, because chiropractic is a fringe medicine and has been for over 100 years. He originated applied kinesiology in 1964, so it's very recent, and began teaching it to other chiropractors. An organization of Goodhart's study group leaders began meeting in 1973 and selected the name the International College of Applied Kinesiology, and then they started teaching about this, and it caught on like Reiki did and other modalities like that in the New Age movement and among alternative type of healers like chiropractic people and homeopaths and whatever. So Rupert Sheldrake's morphogenic field and applied kinesiology are two things which are promoted and on which GEOTRAN is based. It immediately falls apart when you look at those two things. And then, so there's something wrong here. It's only operating through suggestion and through belief. It's more of a religion than any kind of a science. It reminded me somewhat of Radionics, if you've ever heard of that, which I also ran into. Radionics has been around since the early 1900s. It's called electromagnetic therapy, and the Abrams method, this guy, Albert Abrams, who died in 1924, invented it, and he developed these machines which could measure and influence you through magnetic whatever. You can see one of these machines here. He sold a lot of them. He became very wealthy. It caught on among that alternative crowd in the early 19th century. It's still being used today somewhat, but basically the devices are considered pseudoscience. Several systematic reviews have shown radionics is no more effective than placebo and falls into the category of pseudoscience. And eventually it fell out of favor because obviously it wasn't doing a good job diagnosing anything real. And a lot of people got misled by using radionics. Another form of radionics is that I saw being used is when someone uses a pendulum and swings it to get yes or no or positive or negative. And for instance, one lady I saw in a Whole Foods restaurant had her pendulum, let's say this is a pendulum, and was holding it over fruit that she was buying. And so every single apple or orange or broccoli, she'd see if the pendulum said yes or no, if she should buy that particular fruit. Yeah, it gets that crazy. So radionics has that pseudoscience idea behind it, and GEOTRAN is similar to that in my view. Yeah, so let me look at one last thing here, because I know this is brief and I don't want to get into it too deeply, but you can look it up. So this one website here says, you can learn GEOTRAN, Tools for Successful Living, and he says, GEOTRAN gave me access to more self-love and more kindness for myself. Since I started practicing GEOTRAN in 2011, my life gets better. So you can sense the narcissistic appeal of this kind of a new age healing modality. I am so grateful for this work that I want to share it with all of you. Of course, it costs some money. Introductory class lasts about 2 hours. You can do a Zoom for 1 hour or 45 minutes. It'll cost you $222, and it goes up from there. And he also has a bunch of recent posts, like chats, and they're titled 365 Days of Self-Love. Yeah. So it says that the cost includes an electronic manual and access to complimentary GEOTRAN community calls. During the class, I introduced GEOTRAN, its founder, Dorothy Wood Isbell, and then we practiced 3 tools of GEOTRAN together: mind gems, clearings, and positive points. Clearings reminds me of Scientology. You have to be cleared of all negative energy or engrams when you do Dianetics. So there's nothing really new about this idea of clearing the self. The old I Am cult used violet flame chants and decrees in order to clear the system of all kinds of negative energies and whatever. So it's in that category of spirituality, of fringe pseudoscience and whatever for healing. All right, well, that's a little bit on GEOTRAN. I may do something else on this, maybe do something a little more organized, talk about someone that have tried it and it didn't work. Thank you for listening, and enjoy your day.